I'm sorry, dear. My Street Dog family, I want to say good night to St. Kitts and Nevis. There's a little glitch just now. I want to say good night to the entire world and do apologize hastily for my tardy start tonight, which is due to a little technical flaw. Yeah, some technical difficulties we face, but that's part of the game. And I'm sure we will make up for that as we go along. But it's time for me to say good night to the Kittitian and Division and Caribbean diaspora all over the globe. I know that some of you are in Africa, there's some of you in Europe, there are some of you in Asia, and there are a whole lot of you all over North America. So I am at liberty to say good night. I will say good afternoon, and in some cases I can and I will say good morning, because some of you, like I said, are in Africa, some in Asia, some in Europe, and there are a whole lot of you all over North America. And there's some of you who are first timers, and I want to say welcome to the first timers, and trust and hope it will not be your last occasion. And to let you know that Straight Talk is heard every Monday and Thursday night from 8 to 10 in the PM. And we bring you all the issues, whether they be legal, whether they be environmental, whether they be technical, social, economic, and or political issues. On Straight Talk, we do have a forum to express yourselves freely. On this program, we try to raise the level of national consciousness. We try to raise the level of national discourse by alerting our people to their rights, to their responsibilities, and certainly to their obligations. My name is Ian Patches Liburd, and I give Almighty God thanks for blessing me with the opportunity to join you in conversation on yet another occasion. And as your host, I always pledge to remain an untiring advocate of truthfulness, as I'm always reminded by a favorite hymn of mine. And an excerpt goes something like this: we are called to be God's prophets, speaking for the truth and right, standing firm for godly justice, and bringing evil things to light. That's what we do. And we seek to the courage needed, our high calling to fulfill, that we all may know the blessing of the doing of God's will. On this program, my Straight Dog family, I'll also hasten to inform you that absolutely nothing is watered down on this program. To make it more interesting, neither by omission nor by exaggeration. And we are not about sensationalism.
Straight talk is not about excitement, especially if that comes at the expense of accuracy, because we always try to lean on the facts, as it is my bounden duty to present the unvarnished truth, I call it. Nothing but the plain truth, especially when it comes to governance, integrity, accountability, name them all, wherever that happens, wherever that happens in the world. Because we are joined by people across the Federation. We are joined together with people in the diaspora all around the world. Some we know very well and have met. Others we do not know and may never ever meet physically. Some we do meet spiritually. But whatever it is, my Straight Talk family, whatever we do, we try as well to ensure that the things we say and our do will be beneficial to all concerned. So let us thank Almighty God for blessing us, helping us to understand. Oh, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. And as I was going to say earlier, we do have our differences because we are a different people. But let's not, my Straight Talk family, let's not start to become disagreeable. My Straight Talk family, I welcome again my people and say thanks to all those who share the link as you bring first timers. Please continue to do so. I must also remind you that Straight Talk is a participative program. By that I mean we include your calls and your emails. And if you're so minded, call in, the numbers are on your screen. The numbers are 663-6672 and or 646 829-6672. There are those who like what I call the cloak of anonymity. So we give you access via our email platform, and that is straighttalkpatches@gmail.com. And we also heard on Alexa. For those of you who have that Alexa app, just say, Alexa, play Massive Vibes Radio. And my Straight Talk family, there's some of you who have also made donations, and we are grateful for that. We are grateful for those donations, my Straight Talk family. And some of you who have done so, I am eternally grateful. As I said, I say a big thank you. I must also reassure you that whatever your donation is, no matter what your contribution may be, it helps us to continue this important service, this important public service, my Straight Talk family. And I want to, as usual, hail my young brigade. I cannot ever do this show without hailing my young brigade. Young Dwayne, Tristan, Shama, Kevin, my Straight Talk family, and Young Rue, Travis, Travan, and all those who are with us, and of course my grandson Neymar and his good friend Soraya, and the special people, his special people there in this special lady, I should say, there in St. Louis. Yes, I understand we're having some sound problems. We get that sorted out. I cannot answer the telephone, so I would suggest you send me a message. I cannot be speaking live with you and respond to a telephone. But thanks a lot for your concern, and we will get that matter sorted out, whatever the difficulty is. We do apologize with the difficulties we are facing, my Straight Talk family, and we understand that we're having a sound problem, whatever is causing that sound problem. we will get that rectified, as I can assure you, sooner rather than later. We do apologize for that, ever is causing the sound problem, my Straight Dog family. And my Straight Dog family, our observations in review. The time when we highlight the current issues, we do some reflection, and we ask some questions. What was accomplished? What has been done, and how it helped others? And my Straight Dog family, what we do reflect and see how it has helped. And my Straight Dog family, after our observations in review, we will begin our thesis for tonight, which I have titled, What is a Fair Share for Nevis? And my first observation, my Straight Dog family, I thank all who yes, my Straight Dog family, we do apologize for whatever is the technical difficulty. We understand, we've heard all of your complaints, and we're trying to rectify that. So please understand, I would not be able to communicate with you. Even though you call me on the telephone, I won't be able to answer the telephone. So I may perhaps be able to send you a message or to read a message. But our first observation, my Straight Dog family, we must commend Samal. Yes. We criticize them when they do badly, and we do criticize him quite a lot when he does badly, and does that quite often. And most times, he does badly. Yes, my Straight Dog family, we do apologize, like I said, for the technical difficulty that we were facing, and trust that and hope that we are up and about. And I was saying that our first observation, I want to highly commend Samuel Duggins. Yes, I do criticize him when he does badly. And quite often, he really does badly, my Straight Dog family. But just yesterday, he seemed to have got the transparency requirement right for the first time. When I heard him say this, I said, wow.
We have also designed, and we are now approaching the groundbreaking of the Creative Arts Center for the creative economy. Now, that is a $100 million investment into the country, and that should be breaking ground in a matter of months.
Yes, my straight talk family. Samal Duggins got on board with the requirements for transparency. Samal must go a step further and tell us as a people how many shares were approved under the CBI for this particular project. We asked the slow student Jeffrey Hanley as well, what is the cost of the new Bastia High School? It's a big secret. And we know of the reliable rumor that it costs EC $100 million to construct. That's the estimate. We also know that some 1,200 shares were approved. So the question we asked tonight, slow student Jeffrey Hanley, in whose bank account is the over $600 million going? It is also reliably rumored that the estimates for the Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw Airport expansion is US $100 million. Yet some 3,000 shares were approved. We ask the question again. Whose bank account would be credited with over US $600 million? Terrence Michael Drew and Garth Lucifer Wilkin very early spoke and wrote a lot about the prison project. 5,500 shares, you can hear them. But why are they so silent about these new scams under this Terrence Michael July administration? 3,000 shares for the Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw Airport expansion. 1,200 shares for the Bastia High School project. We know that a new High Commission or High Commissioner in the person of Gurdip Devbat presented his credentials to the president there in Delhi in India. Remember this, my straight dog family. So yes, my straight talk family, we have heard and we ask ourselves the question, what we did know or what we did not know, we must comment, until yesterday, that an embassy or a high commission was in fact opened in Delhi, until the former or the foreign minister, Dennis Douglas, told the country this, my straight dog family, or told the world this.
We have had our High Commissioner in India eventually presenting his credentials to the president, and as a result of that, we now have a functional mission or embassy in Delhi in India?
A functioning commissioner or commission, he said, or embassy in Delhi. The question we ask, therefore, my Straight Talk family, will all those millions of dollars stolen from the CBI in St. Kitts and held in the Indian bank in Dubai, would all those millions of dollars be now transferred to an Indian bank in Delhi? That's a question we need answered, and we need answered promptly. Mr. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Senior Minister and former Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. A sudden installation of Dev Gurdip as High Commissioner in Delhi, India. And not just High Commissioner, a resident High Commissioner at that. Gurdip, we know, was contracted under the Douglas Labour Party administration way back in 2013 or 2014. He got some $29,000 US per application. Under Team Unity, his contract was revised and got something like $10,900 per approved application. And he got a $5,000 US, that is, per approved application on the correctional facility. So it's a very interesting appointment, my Straight Talk family. And we are wondering, again, we are asking the question, because we know that monies are held in an Indian bank in Dubai. So are these monies going to be transferred to India? That's something we will follow all the way, my Straight Talk family. Our second observation, to the slow student Jeffrey Hanley, who out of the blue said this yesterday. Jeffrey Hanley said this yesterday, out of the blue, like I said.
Not spend a cent to East Coast. We did not spend 1 cent to East Coast. I must bring that to our attention.
No question was asked. But came this out of the blue comment. And what he meant when he said, we did not spend not 1 cent to East Coast. That slow student always baffles the nation. What the slow student means, we do not know. So perhaps Jeffrey Hanley can tell the country who paid East Coast Housing Development for the 2 houses built, or we may ask, or did they build those houses free of cost? That's the question we ask, because we know that the government guaranteed some $10 million US to NHC. So no question was asked, but the slow student Jeffrey Hanley, as I said, offered this information out of the blue.
Not spend a cent to East Coast. We did not spend 1 cent to East Coast. I must bring that to our attention.
Well, we will hear more about that comment from the slow student Jeffrey Hanley. Our third observation, my Straight Talk family, at the 111th Monetary Council meeting held in Antigua and Barbuda sometime last week, it was revealed that the EC dollar is strong and the profitability of the East Caribbean Central Bank is high, according to the incoming chairman, Gaston Brown, who said this.
Now, the EC currency remains strong. The back-end ratio currently is 97.5%, which is significantly above the 60% statutory requirement. And currently, the central bank holds reserves in the amount of $5.5 billion as of July 2025. And that is up from $5.4 billion as at October 2024. So within the last few months, the central bank would have added $100 million to its reserves. It shows that the performance has been exemplary, and especially when you look at the record profits of about $126.2 million, the governor and certainly his team, they should be commended for a stellar performance. Monetary, credit, and financial conditions in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union remain stable and accommodative. And as I said before, the ECCU growth outlook is projected to expand by about 3.3% in 2025, down from the previous projected range of about 3.5% to 4.5%.
And we must commend Governor Antoine and his team. We must commend them highly for that performance. And my Stray Dog family questions about the $22 million governor's palace were raised. But they were told by the incoming chairman, Gaston Brown, as well, that there was no evidence of malpractice as reported to the council.
Now, the EC currency remains strong. The back-end ratio currently is 97.5%.
A few months ago, there had been concerns about the expenditure on the official residence for the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. Of course, this is the official residence, so whomever occupies the position. Perhaps there had been more heat than light on this issue. Perhaps a lot of emotions came into it. With the passage of time, hopefully, there is more light to be placed on this issue. Was there any discussion on that? And if so, what's the latest? Thanks.
Well, yes, we would have held discussions on the issue. What we recognize in the first instance is that the bill of quantity that was done was flawed. And we noticed too that whereas the tendered process would have literally mandated that the lowest bid be accepted, at the end of the day, that bid was also flawed because the other three bids came in excess of $20 million. So, you know, there were issues in terms of the lowest bid being a significant outlier. And we felt that perhaps that the quantity survey at the time should have picked up that particular anomaly. So one thing I can say for sure, there is no evidence of any malpractice by anyone who was responsible for monitoring this particular project.
No evidence of malpractice. But going forward, the incoming chair of the Monetary Council, Gaston Brown, advised of a no objection requirement in the future for expenditure exceeding $10 million by the central bank.
This particular project is managed primarily by the board of directors. As you know, the council itself and council members, we concentrate primarily on policy formulation. And the history of the operations of the council is such that it does not get involved in project management. So you did not have that regular, let's say, feeding of information to the council. In fact, to the best of my knowledge, the issue of the cost of construction of the governor's residence was never a formal item on the agenda. But we felt, however, that council members should have been kept informed via the directors, and that is where we felt that there was some weakness in terms of sharing information at the time. So there has been a series of recommendations that were made to strengthen the reporting mechanism and the overall governance of projects that may be pursued by the central bank in the near future. And there's also a requirement, for example, that any project in excess of $10 million, that it should be fed up to the council, and they must get a no objection from the council before they pursue any such project.
Well, my Stray Dog family, Recall, it was Ralph Gonzalez who raised the issue of the lavish spending, and his letter was leaked about the $22 million palace, it was called, for the governor, Antoine. And our third and final observation, we look towards the United States of America. And in response to a question about possible sanctions by the USA, Foreign Minister Denzel Douglas revealed that some students were denied visas. Douglas said this.
We have had situations where some of our students who would have been there in the United States on US visas for studies. We understand that some of them have been denied visas in attempting to return. I mention those because these will naturally form the basis on which the government of St. Kitts and Nevis will engage the United States of America to ensure that our own people, especially those who are not violators, that they do not suffer from some of the policies that have been introduced by the new Trump administration.
And my Straight Talk family, the Foreign Minister Denzel Douglas, without elaborating, also revealed that the United States of America has issues with our citizenship by investment program. As I said, he provided no details, but said this.
We intend, of course, to keep the public informed accordingly. Several months ago, there was quite a bit of rumor that there was a leak of a list of countries that would be prevented or would have difficulties in entering the United States of America. That leak prompted our ambassador and other ambassadors from the OECS to engage with Washington. They said that there was no such list, that they do not comment on leaks, but, however, this indicates that there is a need for the United States government, State Department, to enter into discussions on a number of issues which relate to us. And one of the issues identified was the CBI.
Well, the Foreign Minister said they'll keep us updated. So we'll look forward to hearing of the issues that relate to the CBI. Straight Talk will follow all these stories, my family, but those are my observations in review for tonight, and we do apologize for our earlier glitch in terms of the quality and the sound that you are receiving, but I'm informed that all is well now. We may not be up on the Facebook platform, but we are also looking at that. But we move straight to our thesis that I've titled tonight, What is a Fair Share for Nevis? What is a fair share for Nevis is the question that evokes a plethora of answers. And depending on one's political allegiance, it seems, and or from which side of the narrows the analysis comes from, that a certain response is anticipated. But it is oft repeated that if we do not know where we came from, then we do not know where we are. Suffice to add, therefore, that when St. Kitts and Nevis were united by the Federal Act of 1882 and joined with Anguilla as a British colony, our journey has been marked by tension, distrust, and at times outright division. Anguilla, recall, rebelled in 1967. when the islands were given associated status with Britain. From the very beginning, however, the people of Nevis have longed for a relationship based not on subordination, but on fairness, on mutual respect, equity, and justice. Then came the tragic Christina disaster in 1970, which was not just a human loss, it was a political awakening. It shook the confidence of Nevisians in the Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw Labour administration in St. Kitts and gave rise to a new movement, the Nevis Reformation Party, NRP, led by Division Simeon Daniel. Daniel's vision was clear and unshakable. For Daniel, Nevis must govern itself. Nevis must have the right to determine its own future and the fruits of its labor. Sim Daniel demanded that the revenues collected must be shared fairly between both islands. When his party NRP joined with PAM in 1980, they ushered in independence in 1983, but not without ensuring that Nevis had constitutional guarantees. That constitution, however, did not come from consensus. It was born out of political expediency for some and a vision for sovereignty for others. Yet even with those guarantees, conflict persisted. Money, resources, and a lack of transparency poisoned the relationship. And when Premier Amri suspended the revenue sharing agreement and later triggered the secession clause under Section 113, it signaled how deep the divisions had grown. The 1998 referendum may not have succeeded, but the message was clear. Divisions demand to be treated fairly. Today, that message echoes louder than ever. The question is simple. What is a fair share for Nevis? Not just in dollars and cents, but in dignity, in opportunity, and in mutual respect. To get the answer, surprisingly, we put on our colonial blinders and looked to a Bretton Woods institution. To me, it was both puzzling and telling that we turned to a Bretton Woods institution like the World Bank to answer a question so fundamentally rooted in our own national structure. What is a fair share for Nevis? And don't get me wrong, while international expertise can be valuable, this was never a question of global economics. It is a question of justice, transparency, and political will within our federation. Say what you want about Mark Brantley, and I have said a lot, and no doubt will say more if he doesn't change his bad ways. But was Mark wrong to suggest this, my Straight Dog family? Was he wrong to suggest this? I asked that question tonight.
It boggles the mind why the Honorable Prime Minister, a trained accountant and highly astute financial manager, would continue peddling the notion that we need the World Bank to come in to do a study and to tell us how to calculate the monies received from CBI, subtract the expenses of the program, and divide the balance on a pro rata population basis between Bastia and Charlestown, as was agreed as a central plank of the Team Unity construct. I am certain when I say that any student at the Nevis Sixth Form College or CFBC could undertake that mathematical exercise and bring immediate resolution to a matter which has now festered for 7 long years.
Yes, I hear you say. Even a sixth form student in Nevis could find an answer. Because at its core, this issue doesn't require complex algorithms or foreign consultants. It requires honesty. It requires acknowledging that Nevis contributes, that Nevis matters, and that Nevis deserves its due. Look now, we have even turned to an international institution like the World Bank, but answers have been elusive. Because this is not just about numbers, it's about principles and honesty. Mark knows this, but he just cannot be trusted, as one day he will sing your praises, but the day after he is like a venomous snake. Do you remember this, my Straight Dog family? Tell me if you remember this.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm from Nevis. Not Nevis Street, Nevis. And it is important for me to point out that the motivation for the Concerned Citizens Movement and the people of Nevis to invest their confidence in Team Unity and to rally with Timothy Harris, Dr. Timothy Harris, as Prime Minister, was because we, the people of Nevis, felt that we needed a better deal. I believe that the Team Unity mantra is that we wanted a fair share. And so we rallied and we rallied. We came down here. We went in places that perhaps we would not ordinarily go to. It was a long time. You all haven't seen a Nevis politician on a platform in St. Kitts. But we came because we thought it was important to bring the message from that part of our country. And I say our country because too often in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, there has been, perhaps in some quarters, a view that the people of Nevis did not matter. And so when we engage, and engage forcefully, to remove that which was, and to ensure that the people now have a government of their choice, working for them, the people of Nevis rallied with that cause and rallied with us. And I'm here to tell you that after 2 years, I am satisfied that the people of Nevis, are being well served by the Unity administration. That the people of Nevis are being included. That when we sit in cabinet, the people of Nevis are not an afterthought, but they are treated as equal citizens in this country, entitled to the full fruits of their citizenship.
My Straight Dog family, I can hear your comments. But as a Nevisian born in St. Kitts, and I want you to take that statement seriously. I am a Nevisian born in St. Kitts. There are no Liburds from St. Kitts. They are all from Nevis. But on a serious note, I say, fellow Nevisians, we must not accept less than what we deserve. The time has come to demand what was promised, to reignite the vision of Simeon Daniel, and to forge a new relationship based on fairness, mutual benefit, and self-respect. We don't want to see Nevis sidelined. We don't want to see Nevis shortchanged. And we want to see Nevis get its fair share. But we must elect leaders who are honest, trustworthy, and truthful to its people. Because when the true story of the Team Unity government, headed by our third Prime Minister, Timothy Harris, is written, however, it will be recorded that the motivation of the CCM and the people of Nevis was because Nevisians felt that they needed a better deal. It will also be recorded that for the first time, 3 political parties, one from Nevis, the CCM, and 2 from St. Kitts, the People's Action Movement and the People's Labour Party, came together on one political platform under a Team Unity banner. And the mantra was, Nevis wanted a fair share. I'm afraid I don't have that PowerPoint. But if you look at the financial summary posted surrendered or tabled, beg your pardon, in the Nevis Island Assembly in December. 40% of the revenue, to which $66 million out of a budget of $168 million projected revenue, came from St. Kitts in the form of budgetary support from the CBI. Ironically, history will also note that the issue of fair share became a contentious one that helped to bring down the team unity government in 2022. It has been 3 years since there was a change of government, yet the issue of fair share remains unresolved. With that change came a promise of renewal, of fairness, and of accountability. But I ask you tonight, my people, what has changed? How can this be that after all the speeches, after all the handshakes, the photo opportunities, and now an opposition leader in coalition with the government, how can the fundamental issue of fair share remain unresolved? Very early following the August 2022 election, Mark Brantley, the self-proclaimed sheriff who came to St. Kitts on his donkey, showered praises on Terrence Michael Drew, in whom he believed. He said this, my Straight Talk family.
What I'm interested in is non-tax revenue flowing into the country like CBI, like grants and various types of programs like those. And I must say, I always try to give Jack his jacket that since his prime minister has been there, he has really reached out in relation to some of that funding, for example, from the Taiwanese government, because that was funding that was being received even while I was sitting in cabinet and I wasn't aware of it. So the prime minister called me up and he said, "Are you aware of this? This is a new prime minister." And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, going forward, you're going to get 25% of it."
That's the praises he showered on the new Prime Minister, Terrence Michael July. Was that the one shot that Drew fired at the sheriff? You remember, he shot the sheriff, my Straight Dog family.
There's a man who came over to St. Kitts, and he think he could lever him out in St. Kitts as much as he wants. But tell him, you know, the springtime crew ain't take that light, you know. The springtime crew ain't take that light, you know. The man come over St. Kitts and talk about his sheriff. But tell him, when the springtime crew done with him, neither he nor none of them got left standing, because it's one shot we got for the sheriff.
Was that the one shot he gave the sheriff? The Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis is clear. It lays out a legally binding, morally sound framework for the sharing of tax proceeds between the federal government and the Nevis Island administration. It accounts for population, it deducts for common services, it considers national debt. And yet, despite that clear roadmap, we remain at the crossroads. Why, you may ask? Because the Constitution, written in another era, could not have foreseen the emergence of non-tax revenue sources like the Citizenship by Investment Program that now plays a dominant role in our national economy. This is not a division issue. This is a national issue. Because when any part of a nation feels neglected or ignored, the whole nation is weakened. When fairness is denied, unity becomes fragile. We are not alone in this call. The World Bank, an institution of global credibility, has issued expert recommendations for equitable financial arrangements. Recommendations grounded in data, in fairness, and in sustainability. But now we hear the NIA complain. We hear the NIA complain that they were not consulted.
Did the World Bank consult with the NIA to Because basically you said that you don't know where some of the Nevis Island administration doesn't know where they got some of the figures from. So if you could just shed some light on that, thanks.
Fair share report, no consultation with the NIA. I can confirm that, and this is what has led us, I think, to questioning some of the numbers, because our people are not consulted. Which again begs the question, if you're trying to do something to solve a problem, why not engage and consult? Because our people in the Ministry of Finance, all they made reference to in the report were budget numbers that they claim came from the budget. And I say they claim because they have no difficulty reconciling the numbers. But there was no consultation with the NIA on this process. And so that is definitely going to be one of the talking points as we engage with the national government, with the Prime Minister and his team. So that is definitely going to be one.
Is this one step forward, 2 steps backward? But recommendations alone are not solutions. One step forward, 2 steps solutions require political will. Solutions require dialogue. And solutions, most of all, require actions. I have always advanced the view, and still do, that tax revenue and non-tax revenue are primarily economic classifications used to categorize the different streams of income for governments. The income the government collects through mandatory payments or levies imposed on individuals, businesses, and other entities is classified as tax revenue. It is the government's primary source of funding for public services, infrastructure, and social programs. Examples include income tax, sales tax, property tax, and corporate tax, and the list goes on. But what is required is a formula that is just, that is constitutional, and that is necessary for long-term equity and stability of the Federation. That share must cover both tax and non-tax revenue, especially CBI. Anything less undermines the core principles of our federation: equality, fairness, and shared prosperity. There can only be a solution that embodies a clear, enforceable formula for revenue sharing that includes all non-tax revenue and not just CBI revenue. Transparent annual financial reports, externally audited, so citizens can see exactly what the Federation earns and what the Federation spends. Equal representation in decision-making over how funds are managed and invested, including the much talked about sovereign wealth fund. In the words of the experts like the World Bank, federations must adapt their financial framework to modern realities. With CBI now a foundational pillar of our economy, the time to resolve this issue is now. In conclusion, my Straight Talk family, it is time to let the people decide. For decades, the issue of Nevis's fair share has lingered, discussed in the corridors of power, debated in whispers, but never brought fully into the light. I served in cabinet for 5 years, and not one occasion, not once, has this matter come formally before the cabinet. When Premier Vance Winkworth Amory, may his soul rest in peace, raised it, he raised it in camera with the Prime Minister. He simply wrote a letter to the Prime Minister and received a portion of the CBI funds. Years later, Premier Mark Brantley did the exact same thing. And today, the NIA receives $5.5 million monthly as budgetary support from the same CBI. Did you bring that to the cabinet, Mark? Hell no, you did not. But are those numbers grounded in fairness or in a political compromise? We now know that the World Bank report, commissioned and completed, has been sitting in the hands of our political leaders for over 6 months, because Drew told us He got that since in January, my Straight Talk family.
Did the World Bank consult the NIA to do this?
That we have received from the World Bank its recommendations as to how we should share revenues.
Since in January, my Straight Talk family, you've heard him. In February, he told us that the financial secretary was reviewing the document. He told us this as well.
We have received from the World Bank its recommendations as to how we should share revenues. That has been talked about a lot, fair share. It has never been studied all this time. That is why I keep saying that unity construct, I don't know what it did for Nevis. This was a question that Nevis had, and the Federation should have that it should be answered. So we have received that, I've indicated to the Premier in our meeting, and so the FS is helping us to prepare the document so that we can further deal with the issue of the sharing of revenues between St. Kitts and Nevis.
And we asked the question, my Straight Talk family, all it required was for the financial secretary was to put a cover letter and send the report to Mark Brantley. Mark Brantley confirmed that he received the letter, the report, beg your pardon. But now, 3 months after, my Straight Talk family, Mark Brantley has publicly noted his cabinet's exception, and yet the people of this federation, whose future it directly impacts, remain in the dark. This cannot continue. The issue of Nevis's fair share is not just a government matter. It's a national one. It is time for the people to know what the experts said. It is time for transparency. Publish the World Bank report. Let the people read it, reflect on it, and decide for themselves what is just, what is fair, and what is owed, if anything, to Nevis. This debate has gone on for far too long. Divisions are not begging. They are asserting their rightful place, and repetitions and divisions are demanding accountability. The future of our federation depends on trust, and trust begins with truth. Let the people see the report. Only then we can truly begin to answer the question, what is a fair share for Nevis? That's my story tonight, my Straight Talk family, and I am not going to change it. I will open the lines and now entertain your calls and your emails. And when I do so, I anticipate that you will respect others. And of course, to achieve that, you must first respect yourselves. Let us try to be fair to all concerned, and let us try to build goodwill and better friendships. Let us, my Straight Talk family, in the things we say and or do, try to ensure that they are beneficial to all concerned. And in the process of doing and saying those things, let us strive to build a kinder, gentler St. Kitts and Nevis. With that said, I open the lines at, is it 9 minutes or 8 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour, and I say good night to our first caller. Caller, you are live. Hello, caller.
Good night, Mr. Liburd.
Good night, my dear. How about thou?
I am great. Mm-hmm. Equal pay day is another reminder.
Are you there?
Yes, equal pay day. The reminder of how far.
A reminder of what?
How far.
Of how far, sorry, here.
Yes, how far we are from equality.
Far we are from equality. That's it?
Yes. I repeat, if not to remind, we are from equality. Have a great evening.
Have a great evening as well. Thanks for your quotations each time. Equal pay day is a reminder of how far we are from equality. That caller always provides some thought-provoking quotations each time, and very, very important one as well. Equal pay day reminds us of how far we are from equality. Yes, my Straight Dog family, the lines are open. If you have just joined me, again, we apologize for the technical difficulties that we are facing tonight. These things normally happen, but we are getting over them as we speak. I'm not so certain if the straight Facebook is up and running, but YouTube is for sure. I go back to the lines. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Yeah, Pat, good evening, man. How you doing, man? Good evening to you.
I am peaceful.
The listeners home on. Nice to hear. Very much nice to hear that. Good evening to you and the listeners home and abroad. I decided to come in early tonight because Patches, this episode what you put out here tonight, it is very, very detailed, interesting, intriguing. It's very telling. And I'm paying attention to that history between these two little islands. And I'm proud of you for acknowledging the fact that you're a Nevis man from St. Kitts.
Born in St. Kitts, yes. That is true.
Okay. Patches, the Liburds are from Nevis.
Gingerland, yeah.
Gingerland to be exact.
Yes.
And elsewhere.
Yes.
And I just hope that the people are opening their ears and hearing what you're saying tonight. I have a big brother who I confide in many times during each day. You know what he told me recently? God gave us 2 ears, but only 1 mouth.
1 mouth, yes.
You know what that means? We should be actually be listening more than talking when we are communicating. With that said, Patches, whenever the people of a country is dissatisfied, they're either going to go to the streets or they're going to replace the current government. And St. Kitts and Nevis is rapidly approaching that crossroad. I see the governments on both islands will and should be replaced if they don't pull up their socks in the next 2 years. Let me concentrate on Nevis. And I'm going to put it out there tonight. For all the time I'm talking out here, I can tell the public I'm a real Nevis man. I am 56 years old. And if you're 56 years old in Nevis, you know what type of era that 56-year-old grew up in. And I know there's a lot of contention always go on between Basti and Charlestown. We had the team unity concept. They were doing good. It was a phenomenon that the country wasn't accustomed to. And the egos of these people break up that construct. I came into the Federation in 2015, and what I saw, Patches, these 3 leaders should have acted with more maturity to hold that concept together. They imploded at the end. One of the issues, fair share for Nevis. And then now, we listened to the clips of the Premier tonight, and the Premier is silent. No way Nevis people should be taking that SHIT. No way Nevis people should be taking that. We have a clause in the Constitution 113 It guarantees our right to separate whenever we get that majority vote. 2/3, I think that is. And when you look at the premier right now, the man is scrunting for money really in the patches. But he had already done got all the budgetary help that you mentioned, and at least $60 to $66 million was rolled into the coffers of the NIA and the Nevis side. Nevis people got to wake up. Patches, if you're in a situation that you don't like, what are you going to do about that situation? You're going to stay there and take that abuse, man?
Change it.
The man, you got to change that and get out of that situation. Patches, I gave you some homework before. The debt, national debt, as opposed to the NIA debt. And I'm going to ask you to go back and see if you can get that homework done. And when you're doing that homework, you find out what was the NIA debt before the current NIA administration got in there. And then so we could compare then to now. And one thing that I realized real quickly before I get out, because I know time is of the essence. I was listening to another program on 2020, the NRP guys just now. They're on concurrently with you. I don't even think that's a good idea, because these two shows they're conflicting right now. And there's two topics that's on both ends right now that's very interesting, similar topics. And over in Nevis, the premier has now said that in 17 years, they didn't do the reevaluation of the property so that they could collect more taxes and the increase value on the properties there. So now they increased the property taxes this year, and then they are currently now putting a body together to go around and reevaluate the properties, and by November, that should be over with, and they're now going to have another increase based on the increase in property value that's going to be implemented on the people of Nevis in 2026. So now we're going to have, all of a sudden, we're going to have a double whammy of double increases, 2 increases in 2 years back to back, 25 and 26. You know why is that happening now? It's because the NIA is in trouble financially. Patches, the debt over in Nevis is gone so past $500 million, heading up to $1 billion. And Nevis people got to understand they cannot continue like that. If they don't get their house in order, they're going to fall apart in Nevis. And then now we are seeing the premier putting a lot of pressure on the prime minister to get that financial help over in Nevis. 20 million guaranteed through a loan through a national bank or whatever to move out those people out of the top of the airport. And if they get that done, the lands in the south side of Nevis people, Patches, they're going to come under so pressure with these taxes. They're going to get desperate, and those lands on the south side of Nevis going to come out of those landowners, those local landowners' hands. Because when these taxes come out in Nevis, as it's starting to happen now, then Nevis people will start losing their own property that they had for all these years. Nevis people are going to have to wake up and make a change on this side. Patches, I'll leave it there for now and I'll let other people come in. But I've spoken my piece directly to the Nevis people. They got to agitate to stop this man. We need a change in Nevis. And right now, the NRP and their leader, they should put the pressure on the premier to get that fair share report. Thanks a lot, Patches. You have a good night.
Thanks a lot as well for and feel your passion. And yes, you're right. It's said that a good speaker must be a good listener. That's what your brother was telling you about, the 2 ears and 1 mouth. And just to say as well that I believe it was after Vance Amory demitted office when everything just seemed to have tumbled down. But as I said before, the constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis is clear. It lays out a legally binding, morally sound framework for the fair sharing of tax proceeds between the government, or the federal government that should be, and the Nevis Island administration. It accounts for population. It deducts from for common services. You'll be aware that the federal government is responsible for national security, the police, the fire services, and as well for foreign affairs. And it considers national debt. I thought I did the homework and provided the information in relation to the debt. I recall it. I know it for sure. It was well over $500 million in Nevis, and the federal government has guaranteed a high amount of that. And there's some big loans from the Bank of Nevis and the National Bank that are not guaranteed, that I know of. But because the Constitution was written in another era, in the 1980s, some 40 years ago, the emergence of non-tax revenue sources like the Citizenship by Investment Program that now plays a dominant role in our national economy was not foreseen. Let me use those words. But I submit that this is not a division issue. This has to be seen as a national issue. Because when one part or any part of the federation feels neglected or ignored, the whole federation is weakened, becomes weaker. When fairness is denied, then unity becomes fragile. You see what happened 3 years ago. And we are not alone in this call, because the World Bank, as an institution of global credibility, issued recommendations for equitable financial arrangements, recommendations grounded in data, in fairness, and in sustainability. And the Premier is talking a lot about CBI. CBI is fixated on CBI. But we learned from a reliable source that only 250 applications were received by the CIU so far for 2025. So you still want 25% of those 250 applications? You see what's going on now with the CBI. No doubt, Brantley has now come forward with this excuse about not being consulted. After 6 months, haven't said a thing. Why didn't he say, when the Prime Minister was saying that all these things about the report and the relationship, why didn't Mark Brantley say he was not consulted? How come all of a sudden Mark Brantley was not consulted? Could you imagine that, my straight dog family? All of a sudden, Mark Brantley now says he was not consulted.
Because basically you said that you don't know where some of the Nevis Island administration doesn't know where they got some of the figures from. So if you could just shed some light on that, thanks.
Fair share report, no consultation. I can confirm that, and this is what has led us, I think, to questioning some of the numbers, because our people are not consulted. Which again begs the question, if you're trying to do something to solve a problem, why not engage and consult our people in the Ministry of Finance? All they made reference to in the report were budget numbers that they claim came from the budget. And I say they claim because we're having a difficulty reconciling the numbers. But there was no consultation with the NIA on this process. So that is definitely going to be one of the talking points as we engage with the national government, with the Prime Minister and his team.
And all of a sudden, my street dog family, there was no consultation. It's now 23 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. If you have just joined me, we are discussing our thesis tonight: what is a fair share for Nevis? I do apologize for those who may not have connected earlier because of the difficulties we were having technically. But we are now up and running, and we again apologize for that. Greetings Patches reads this email. The this government thinks that we are fools. I know I heard Minister Henderson state that this year's St. Kitts Music Festival saw a 70% increase this year. The video was edited to remove it. All the numbers she gave did not match with the numbers given by her permanent secretary in an interview. Hers is way higher. Are they trying to trick us into believing that the St. Kitts Music Festival was a success when it wasn't? Correct me if I am wrong, but why continue an economic impact months after the event? If the economic impact is just for the event, help us to figure this out. Patches reads this email. This other email reads, I'll just try and dispense of some of these emails, my Straight Talk family, if you bear with me for now. Greetings, Patches. It has been alleged that the marketing unit at the Department of Agriculture told farmers that they have to come back for their produce if the marketing unit was unable to sell them after 2 weeks. This is crazy. They told the farmers to plant and guaranteed them a market. Now farmers have food wasted by the thousands. Some even give away and still have a lot of spoilage on their hands. This is ridiculous. Who will compensate the farmers for their produce? The minister is clueless in agriculture, reads this other email. I want to remind Dougie, reads this email, that when he is talking about the judge, say this and judge says that, in his attempt to cast aspersions on Harris, usually brilliant contribution in Today, Dougie be reminded that it was Justice Bell who said that you are a stranger to the truth. And you never once commented nor denounced that dynamic damning statement preferred against you and the bad governance you preside over. Also remember that it was a former Chief Justice of the OEC's Court of Appeal who condemned your parliament as a useless tool or instrument. Because you blatantly usurped the Constitution and refused to debate a motion of no confidence brought by the opposition, you have no moral authority, Dougie, to mention anything a judge says. Harris got you, and them going. Take that, reads this email. Mr. Attorney General hoped that when you go to give the address to the body of legal luminaries, you will tell them that you broke the security laws of your country, and because of your status as Attorney General, you are walking free, while ordinary citizens who broke the said law are sitting in jail today. Just remember to tell them that, reads this email. Mr. Liburd, you're not being heard. These are some earlier emails telling me it was not being heard. Yes, I've got you, and we do apologize again for that. Good night, Patches. The people of Nevis, just like the children of Israel, were left languishing in the wilderness of despair and frustration, thus going round and round in circles, trying to get to the CBI promised land, where St. Kitts and St. Kitts only continuously feast on the CBI milk and honey. To the leaders of St. Kitts, everyone in St. Kitts Nevis suddenly become literate to make calculations for the sharing. And instead of using our very own ECCB to do the study for the sharing, they use the World Bank, a deceptive smokescreen. If our brains in St. Kitts Nevis was good enough to create the CBI, then why the same brains couldn't work out the simple logistics of the sharing of CBI receipts? The maths are simple. If 25 million remains after deductions, then 20 million for St. Kitts and 5 million for Nevis. Let us do like Grenada and disclose the amount derived from CBI. Then the average man on the street of St. Paul's and Cotton Ground could easily calculate and say how it should share. All St. Kitts has done is, instead of putting all the money from the sales of our passport inside the cash register. Senkis is putting the small bills and coins in the cash register, but the hundreds and fifties, they're stuffing inside their own deep pockets. Reads this email, very interesting email as well. Yes, we heard a lot about the corruption, the money laundering. That's so true. Good night, Mr. Liburd. Mr. Amish said Mark is not good. Mr. Harris said he is a bad spender. And I say, even if you give Mark 70% and Senkis 30%, I promise you the money still won't be enough. He has failed, and I'm sure he will realize, but living in denial. Almost 4 years ago, before the election, he said the hospital is finished. The Monday track is not completed. The roads are very bad. The airport is dead. Nothing is going on persons. Just recently got paid for last year. Culturama, after spending millions on the complex. The man is a big donkey, reads this email. I ask my Straight Talk family, you may have just joined me. If you have just joined me, we are looking at our thesis, which I have titled tonight, for those who may have just joined me, What is a Fair Share for Nevis? And those of you who joined me belatedly, I gave an historical perspective. I gave an historical perspective, but here's what. Let's take this call, and I'll get back to that. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Good night, Brother Patches.
Good night, my brother. Welcome.
The gentle, humble servant who is responsible for Winston, welcome.
Yes, Minister, welcome.
Yes. And I must say, this is Mr. Winston, welcome. First of all, my colleague, Mr. Jones, who just spoke, he made a very great argument, and I second his motion. I second whatever explanation. And also, I'm going to echo, I hope the people of Nevis are listening, because we are now over to Nevis to fight the battles. And I hope we will get all the allies to align with us. Now, first of all, also I must say, Mark Grantley has to go. We have to get rid of Mark Grantley. CCM is no good for Nevis. So, people of Nevis, listen to Mr. Jones. He's a very good analyzer, and he's a very good voice. And mainly, Mr. Ian Patches is the knowledgeable base we all should listen to. Until now, no one has challenged you in any observation, perspectives, in any shape or form. So you are doing well, and continue. You shall not be stopped, but go forward. Last but not least, Nevisians, watch each other back. And all of you keep an eye on Mark Grantley, because he is a transactional prime minister, and where all this money that was given, granted to the Nevisian to solve their needs, where is it? I believe you should know who to ask. Projects that were announced and they are not finished. I saw the steels for the wing of the hospital since 2022, when I was there, I think, in my collection. And nothing has been constructed. Where is that money? What's the delay? It's on the way to. People, get rid of Mark Grantley. That's all I have to say right now. And I'm going to stay on the Nevis ground and the Nevis affairs tonight, moving forward. Bye for now.
Thank you very much for your interventions, as usual. And what is a fair share for Nevis? Is a question we ask tonight. And a question that evokes so many responses, a plethora of answers. And depending on one's political allegiance, it seems, and or from which side of the narrows the analysis comes from, and a certain response is anticipated. But it is oft repeated that if we do not know where we came from, then we cannot know, or we will not know, where we are. And I gave you, my Straight Dog family, as I said, an historical perspective going back to 1882, when by a federal act, Nevis and St. Kitts were united and later joined by Anguilla as a British colony. And on this journey, this long journey from the 19th century to now, the 21st century, it has been marked by tension, distrust, and at times outright division. Let's go back to the lines. Caller, thank you for holding your live. Hello, caller.
How are you?
I am peaceful. Yourself?
You know who's speaking to you?
Yes, I can never miss that voice.
Okay, then.
I got your message. I saw on Facebook Messenger, but I did not get a response to the call. But we'll talk about it at some other time. I'll try and call your brother if he responds to me.
Yeah, I want you to do that.
Okay.
I want you to do that, Mr. Liburd. Tonight is another Thursday night, and I don't want to bring up that speech again because every other Thursday night come, I don't want to keep it up. What I call to find out, you get it?
Yes.
I was listening to the house. Huh?
I was saying yes, I got it. Yes. I said I received it. Yes.
Yes, I was listening to the house that they had today when they're speaking about when they kill. I'm not going to cock in and go in. The point is the same. Sorry. People children. I keep in my heart. But Mr. I can tell you tonight, Thursday night, what happened. Whatever we've done and do on this earth tonight, we ain't done with people. We ain't done with him. We ain't done with him. Whatever we do, whatever we done. And let's say it again. We think he's moving in this kind of direction. What will happen? We have a doubt of support. Because nothing I do, nothing happen. The supermarket then, scared anybody going in it, boy. Nobody doing a tap of plate once ago. Nobody enjoying this plate once ago. It's like COVID come again and think it. Nobody, they don't make the money out of the bus. They don't make the money. Something wrong in this place. You hear me? We can't put back in those people again, sir. Happening right now. It's a war. When we get come and it's come. Anti-cabinet, anti-cabal, anti-cabal, not the cabinet. They ain't looking for poor people, the word of the alley up here, of the point up there. That one was supposed to fix when Mr. Harris was in. Mr. Harris is not in, them is in. And they're supposed to fix whatever war, whatever problem the country have. They're supposed to fix it. They're supposed to move that. What I wonder Mr. Harris start today, this and starting on. And it's like they're going to not one. inside like that big man. Eh? They need to go, them are the problem, you know? Them are the problem. We went to tongue and everybody speaking about them people. He makes so much a promise to the young people, them. For the people, young people, them. Brainwash the young people, them, who work for him and they're getting down. Everybody feel it. Everybody just say, no, Balu come. Mr. Harris want them. And they mean that they're going to put in them. Never get him on, but I because I tell him, we will see how to do. Well, people don't eat at money. Shopping to buy nothing. School shut up. But the people don't get money from my school clothes. The dame will clip it.
Okay.
250 jada. Mr. Liburd, we have to do something, you know. We have to do something. You know, they have the brain and the wisdom to run the country. They play with the country and they play with the people in the country. They got everybody like a damn puppet and what? A stuck star in the place. They know what they're doing.
Okay.
It's bunch for them to go on.
Okay.
And they don't know what they don't know what they're doing. Harris again, and he have to go back in there. They could kick up, they could plant. Harris again, because when he was in there, morning was a floor in people's hands. Harris again.
Okay, my dear, thanks.
Mr. Liburd, and tell the commissioner there, you know, if you don't give my brother justice, you know, when the water go uphill. You have a good evening.
Have a good evening, my dear. I feel your pain. I can hear you. I can feel the passion. And yes, you know, I listened to a press conference, a so-called press conference, a few days ago. And the major issue, the major bread and butter issues were not addressed. The kitchen table issues were not addressed. This man talking about Africa and hub. But the cost of living keeps mounting and the standard of living continues to deteriorate. But getting back to our discussion, my Straight Talk family, and our thesis tonight, what is a fair share for Nevis? And from the very beginning, Nevisians or the people of Nevis longed for a relationship based not on subordination, but on fairness, on mutual respect, and on justice and equity. That's what the people of Nevis longed for from the very beginning. And reflect when the Christina disaster in 1970, which many people would not or have not forgot till this day. This was just not a human loss, but it was a political awakening for the people of Nevis. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Yes, Mr. Liburd, I just needed like a half of a minute to come back in. Thank you for letting me get back in. As we stay on the Nevis side, at the premier's, I think that was his latest press brief, and he's talking about the fair share report. One of the observations that I made is he says he's dissatisfied with the local numbers. I guess he's possibly saying that local numbers from the Nevis side were omitted in whatever assessment the World Bank did. But if he is the pioneer of this fair share for Nevis, right? And you know that there's a calculation going to be made, why didn't the Premier submit whatever information, numbers he got to submit from the Nevis side if he was so concerned? I mean, Patches, it's like you going to child support court, and the judge is going to make a determination of how much child support you're going to pay, but you're just going to sit there like a dummy and don't tell that judge that you have other responsibilities. You got your rent to pay, you got your car payment, you got different household bills in order for you to survive.
But
so he omitted. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how do you interpret not consulted? Would the World Bank come to St. Kitts to deal with a fair share issue between St. Kitts and Nevis and don't consult those folks across the Narrows? That sounds.
So
that sounds right.
This is where I'm pointing to. That don't sound right at all. Mm-hmm. This is where I'm pointing to. That's a great question from you coming back to me. And I brought up the example with you going to child support court. Mm-hmm. I mean, how are you going to just stay there and take the punishment and then come back and complain now when you are the pioneer of this fair share report? Exactly. That means you're supposed to reveal all the necessary information from your side and omit nothing if possible, so that when this World Bank make that determination, you will be in the most advantageous position you should be in. Now you're going to come back and complain again? Like that email said, if 70% comes across the Nevis and 30% stays in St. Kitts, it's starting to appear that 70% would not even be enough because the manager of the money is not managing the money right. That's as simple as it is. And the other contribution I want to make, the Foreign Minister, Douglas, had made some comments somewhere along the line in the past couple of days, addressing the immigration policy of the United States, which is now trickling down on St. Kitts and Nevis. The citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis has to go back and listen to that speech from Douglas. We are back almost in the position we was when we lost our visa-free status to Canada. He has said that there are students in St. Kitts and Nevis that has applied for visas, student visas, and they were already being denied. So our citizens are already start feeling the pressure and the effects of the immigration policy of this Trump administration. The people of the Federation got to pay attention. Douglas and his portfolio, his department, when the United States put out that thing, whether it was a leak or it was fake or not, I personally believe that they did not consult with the U.S. authorities enough. They did not make the necessary changes. And now we are going to feel the pressure, Patches. We're going to feel the squeeze. All that money that we got from the CBI program, and they mismanaged that money, poor people in St. Kitts and Nevis are going to pay for that. Somebody going to pay for all that mismanaged money, and it's going to fall more fault on the citizens. Now, our kids them can't get to go to the United States to go to college because we are being denied visas, student visas especially, to go there. Thanks a lot, man. I'll leave it there for the night. You guys have a good night.
Thanks a lot, my brother. And we do welcome your contributions. And this is exactly what Douglas said about the students.
We have had situations where some of our students who would have been there in the United States on U.S. visas for studies. We understand that some of them have been denied visas in attempting to return. I mention those because these will naturally form the basis on which the government of St. Kitts and Nevis will engage the United States of America to ensure that our own people, especially those who are not violators, that they do not suffer from some of the policies that have been introduced by the new Trump administration.
If we listen to that carefully, the foreign minister said that students who were already there and on student visas were denied on their return. Listen carefully, my Shredog family.
We have had situations where some of our students who would have been there in the United States on U.S. Visas for studies, we understand that some of them have been denied visas in attempting to return. I mention those because these will naturally form the basis on which the government of St. Kitts and Nevis will engage the United States of America to ensure that our own people, especially those who are not violators, that they do not suffer from some of the policies that have been introduced by the new Trump administration.
Quite troubling as well, my Shredog family, was his comment about the USA and its concern as it relates to use his words, CBI issues. Douglas said this.
We intend, of course, to keep the public informed accordingly. Several months ago, there was quite a bit of rumor that there was a leak of a list of countries that would be prevented or would have difficulties in entering the United States of America. That leak prompted our ambassador and other ambassadors from the OECS to engage with Washington. They said that there was no such list, that they do not comment on leaks, but, however, this indicates that there is a need for the United States government, State Department, to enter into discussions on a number of issues which relate to us. And one of the issues identified was the CBI.
CBI issue. Let's go back to the lines. Caller, thank you for holding your live. Hello, caller. Are you there, caller? Are you there, caller? Caller, you're live. Are you there, caller? Okay, that caller seems to be not checking that phone. But we've lost that caller. But tonight, my Straight Dog family, we focus on the fair share, a topic that's been spoken about in every cook and nanny, as to use a colloquial reference. And the issue of Nevis, and as I mentioned earlier as well, my Straight Dog family, that we couldn't speak about Nevis and omit the name Simeon Daniel. Because Simeon Daniel's vision was clear and unshakable. For Daniel, Nevis must govern itself. Nevis must have the right to determine its own future and the fruits of their labor. Sim Daniel was the one who demanded that the revenues collected must be shared fairly between both islands. And when his party joined the People's Action Movement in 1980, they ushered in independence in 1983, but not without ensuring that Nevis had constitutional guarantees. That constitution, however, did not come from consensus. It was born out of political expediency for some, like Simmons. But Daniel had a vision of sovereignty. But with even those guarantees, conflict persisted. Money resources, and a lack of transparency poisoned the relationship. Sim Daniel at one time said that when he sent his check to St. Kitts, they would ask him to wait for 2 weeks. Couldn't pay his civil servants. Premier Amri experienced something similar when the National Bank, under its chairman Lincoln Maynard, the father of Congress Maynard, bounced the NIA check. But it was Premier Amri who suspended the revenue sharing agreement and later, believe it or not, triggered the secession clause under Section 113 of the Constitution. The 1998 referendum may not have succeeded, but the message was clear. Divisions demanded to be treated fairly. But today, that message echoes louder than ever. And the question is simple. As I put it, what is a fair share for Nevis? And we cannot look at it just in dollars and cents. But we have to look at it in dignity, in opportunity, and in mutual respect. And to get those answers, believe it or not, some people put on what I call colonial blinders and look toward the Bretton Woods institution. Let's go to the lines. Caller, I'm sorry about that. Some people look to that. Yes, caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
What I call colonial blinders and look toward the
Caller, turn your equipment on, off, beg your pardon. Are you there, caller? Caller, turn your equipment on, listen to your telephone. Hello, caller? Are you there, caller? Okay, let's take this other call. Are you there, caller? Caller, you live. Hello, caller? Are you there, caller? Okay, we seem to be having some difficulty with the telephone line as we're trying to wind down tonight's programming. Yes, we do apologize for those callers, and we trust and hope I'll get you in before we close. I'm trying to see if I can take this other one now. Are you there, caller? Hello, caller?
I did.
Yes, you are.
I did.
Yes, my lord. How art thou tonight?
I'm fine. You know, I'm just really. Now, that is, I want to say to you tonight that what happened and we are in the last and closing of time, eh? And what is taking is present, you know. Jesus said, you see these things up. Our redemption at your night. Now, there is one participant was very irritated. That is saying God is not whatsoever plans on it. We should also, and in the word of Psalm 41, blessed is the man that considereth the poor in the time of trouble. That is God put a government in place. Listen me carefully. To rule
Okay, we seem to be having some difficulty with the quality of that call. I must apologize for that, my Straight Talk family. We've been having some difficulty tonight. Again, we apologize for that. But as we wind down tonight's programming, I'll take perhaps 2 more calls to see if you can hear them any better. And we'll then wind down. But when we look at the issues that we raised tonight, my Straight Talk family, we looked at the World Bank report, and what the Premier said and his comments he made in relation to that report. But I'll get back to that in a few moments. I'll take this call. Call you live. Hello, caller.
Yes, Brother Patches. Last perspective. In respect to that Douglas report about students have been denied visas, let me tell you all something. Let me give you a translation. The translation is, those leaders, ministers that we have in St. Kitts, the United States government don't want to do no business with them. So they're going to put the pressure on the people, and the people going to rise up against them, and that's what's happening. Because imagine those students had their visas before and tried to get it again due to their timelines. The U.S. government don't want to do no business with the Jew administration. They don't want to have no business to do with Douglas, because Douglas had his run-ins already. And those are the people we have there. No business, no representation. We don't have no representation. The U.S. government not going to negotiate with them. So they're going to squeeze the people, and we the people going to get them out. Because they have done the country so much ill. We don't need them back again. And people, if you all don't make a change, there is no way your U.S. government going to ease up. And I will applaud the U.S. government for doing what they did until we get rid of those damn kleptocrats and always coming with their archaeology and the focology. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope people are listening. And this is Mr. Winston Welcome. And I'm not going to change what I said. I mean it. U.S. government, no business with St. Kitts and Nevis.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Okay, my brother, whatever that means. As we wind down tonight's programming, and we raise a simple question, simple but very important question. What is a fair share for Nevis? And I suggest that we do not look at it just in dollars and cents, but in dignity, in opportunity, and in mutual respect. But to get the answer, surprisingly, I must say this one more time. Some people put on their colonial blinders and look towards a Bretton Woods institution. For me, it was both puzzling and telling that we turn to such an institution like the World Bank to answer a question so fundamentally rooted in our own national structure. What is a fair share for Nevis? And as I conclude, I ask you again, please do not misinterpret what I say. Don't get me wrong. Because international expertise can be valuable. But this was never a question of global economics. It is a question of justice, transparency, and political will within our own federation. And I said, as I close, say what you want about Mark Brantley. I said a lot about him, and I will say much more, I'm sure. Because he's not going to change his bad ways. But I asked, was Mark wrong to suggest this, my straight dog family?
It boggles the mind why the Honorable Prime Minister, a trained accountant and highly astute financial manager, would continue peddling a notion that we need the World Bank to come in to do a study and to tell us how to calculate the monies received from CBI, subtract the expenses of the program, and divide the balance on a pro rata population basis between Bastia and Charlestown, as was agreed as a central plank of the Team Unity construct. I am certain when I say that any student at the Nevis Sixth Form College or CFBC could undertake that mathematical exercise and bring immediate resolution to a matter which has now festered for 7 long years.
Yes, if it was just mathematical, a sixth form student or a student from the CFBC could find the answer. But at its core, this issue didn't require complex algorithms or foreign consultants. It required honesty. It required acknowledging that Nevis contributes, that Nevis matters, and that Nevis deserves its due. Look now, we have turned to an international institution like the World Bank, but the answers have been elusive. Because, as I said, this is not about numbers. It is not just about numbers. It's about principle and honesty. But Mark knows this. But Mark just cannot be trusted, as one day he will show you with praises, but the other day he's like a venomous snake. Hello, caller. Good night. Are you there, caller? Hello, caller. Good night. I'm sorry. Are you there, caller?
Yes, I'm here. You could hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Yeah. I'm agree with them with the World Bank. Somebody who don't think, because even if Timothy had to divide the money or whatever, they'll say do it on the behalf. So I'm agree with what they said with Joe. Timothy weighs up with the World Bank and Joe weighs up with the World Bank. I'm agreed it. Let somebody who not stand neutral divide the money and whatever. Let it, whatever they say, let it go. If it's less, let it go. If it's more, let it go. I am agree. Timothy could have done it, but then you know they will say because he do it on the behalf of him that he could get share whatever. Get everybody stand aside and let somebody else do it, and I'm agree with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's what Straight Talk is all about. A diversity in views. But Mark knows, like I said, that he just cannot be trusted. As he would say one thing one day, but the day after he's like a venomous snake, like this, my Straight Talk family.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm from Nevis. Not Nevis Street, Nevis. And it is important for me to point out that the motivation for the Concerned Citizens Movement and the people of Nevis to invest their confidence in Team Unity and to rally with Timothy Harris, Dr. Timothy Harris, as Prime Minister, was because we, the people of Nevis, felt that we needed a better deal. I believe that the Team Unity mantra is that we wanted a fair share. And so we rallied and we rallied. We came down here. We went in places that perhaps we would not ordinarily go to. It was a long time. You all haven't seen a Nevis politician on a platform in St. Kitts. But we came because we thought it was important to bring the message from that part of our country. And I say our country because too often in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, there has been, perhaps in some quarters, a view that the people of Nevis did not matter. And so when we engage, and engage forcefully, to remove that which was, and to ensure that the people now have a government of their choice, working for them, the people of Nevis rallied with that cause and rallied with us. And I'm here to tell you that after 2 years, I am satisfied that the people of Nevis, are being well served by the Unity administration. That the people of Nevis are being included. That when we sit in cabinet, the people of Nevis are not an afterthought, but they are treated as equal citizens in this country, entitled to the full fruits of their citizenship.
And yes, my Straight Talk family. And I say fellow Nevisians, as a Nevisian born in St. Kitts. Nevisians must not accept less than what they deserve. Less than what we deserve, I should say. And the time has come to demand what was promised. To reignite the vision of Sim Daniel and to forge a new relationship based on fairness, mutual benefit, and self-respect. Nevis must not be sidelined, nor shortchanged, but it must have its fair share. But we must, in the process, elect leaders who are honest, not like Mark Brantley. Leaders who are trustworthy, not like Mark Brantley. And leaders who are truthful to his people, not like Mark Brantley. Because when the true story of the Team Unity government headed by our third Prime Minister Timothy Harris is written, however, it will be recorded that the motivation of CCM and the people of Nevis, CCM under Vance Amy, by the way, and the people of Nevis was because the visions felt that they needed a better deal. It will also be recorded that the first time 3 political parties, one from Nevis, the CCM, and 2 from St. Kitts, the PAM and PLP, came together on a political platform under a team unity banner, and the mantra was Nevis wanted a fair share. Ironically, history will also note that the issue of fair share became a contentious one that helped to bring down the team unity government in 2022. But it has been 3 long years since there was a change in government. Yet the issue of fair share remains unresolved. With that change came a promise of renewal, of fairness, and of accountability. But I ask you tonight, what has changed? How can this be that after all the speeches, all the handshakes, the photo opportunities, and now we have an opposition leader in coalition with the government, then how can the fundamental issue of fair share remain unresolved? But very early, following the August 2022 election, Mark Brantley, the self-proclaimed sheriff who came to St. Kitts on his donkey, showered praises on Terrence Michael July, in whom he said he believed my straight dog family.
What I'm interested in is non-tax revenue flowing into the country like CBI, like grants, and various types of programs like those. And I must say, I always try to give Jack his jacket that since this Prime Minister has been there, he has really reached out in relation to some of that funding, for example, from the Taiwanese government, because that was funding that was being received even while I was sitting in cabinet and I wasn't aware of it. So the Prime Minister called me up and he said, "Are you aware of this? That is a new Prime Minister." And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, going forward, you're going to get 25% of it."
But that was one shot. One shot the sheriff got my straight dog family.
There's a man who came over to St. Kitts and he think he could lever him out in St. Kitts as much as he want. But tell him, the springtime crew ain't take that light, The springtime crew ain't take that light, The man come over St. Kitts and talk about his sheriff. But tell him, when the springtime crew done with him, neither he nor none of them got left standing, because it's one shot we got for the sheriff.
So the sheriff, my straight dog family, got one shot. And now he's complaining that he was not consulted.
Of a personal break. I think he went to celebrate his 25th anniversary of his wedding, which I think was a useful and important reason for him to be off for a few days. So we are hopeful that we will be able to consider that this week, and then thereafter we'll be able to engage with the federal government on it. The fair share report, as I confirmed, I now have the report. It has been shared with the cabinet, but we have not yet discussed it in large measure because I would have traveled, last week, would have been away last week. And prior to that, my colleague, the Honorable Spencer Brand, had been away. He had taken a bit of a personal break. I think he went to celebrate his 25th anniversary of his wedding, which I think was a useful and important reason for him to be off for a few days. So we are hopeful that we will be able to consider that this week, and then thereafter we'll be able to engage with the federal government on it.
And my straight dog family, he then said, as I mentioned earlier, they were not consulted.
Did the World Bank consult with the NIA to do this report? Because basically you said that you don't know where some of the Nevis Island administration doesn't know where they got some of the figures from. So if you could just shed some light on that, thanks.
Fair share report, no consultation with NIA. I can confirm that, and this is what has led us, I think, to questioning some of the numbers, because our people are not consulted. Which again begs the question, if you're trying to do something to solve a problem, why not engage and consult? Because our people in the Ministry of Finance, all they made reference to in the report were budget numbers that they claimed came from the budget. And And I say they claim because we're having a difficulty reconciling the numbers. But there was no consultation with the NIA on this process. And so that is definitely going to be one of the talking points as we engage with the national government, with the Prime Minister and his team.
All of a sudden, no consultation. The Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis is clear. It lays out a legally binding, morally sound framework for the fair sharing of tax proceeds between the federal government and the NIA. It's all about non-tax. It accounts for population, it deducts from common services or for common services. It considers national debt, and yet, despite that clear roadmap, we are at a crossroads, and we remain there. Why? We ask my Straight Dog family. And like I said before, I'll say in parting, this is not any vision issue, it's a national issue. Because when any part of the federation feels neglected or ignored, the whole federation is weakened. When fairness is denied, unity becomes fragile. And we are not alone in this call. The World Bank and the Institute of Global Credibility has issued recommendations for equitable financial arrangements. Recommendations grounded in data, in fairness, and in sustainability. But we now hear that the NIA was not consulted. But recommendations alone are not solutions. Solutions require political will, dialogue, and most of all, action. And I have always advanced the view that tax revenue and non-tax revenue are primarily economic classifications used to categorize the different streams of income for government. And my Straight Dog family, what is required is a formula that's just, a formula that is constitutional, and that is necessary for long-term equity and stability of the Federation. That share must cover both tax and non-tax revenue. Anything less undermines the core principles of our Federation: equality, fairness, and shared prosperity. And in the words of experts like the World Bank, federations must adapt their financial frameworks to modern realities. In conclusion, my Straight Dog family, it is time to let the people decide. For decades, the issues of fair share on Nevis's fair share has lingered. It has been discussed in corridors of power. It has been debated in whispers, but never before brought fully into light, my Straight Dog family. I served in the cabinet for 5 years, and not once, my Straight Dog family, was this ever discussed in that cabinet meeting. It was an arrangement between the Premier and Prime Minister. Vance Amy started it, and Mark Brantley continued it. That's why he still gets his 5 million, beg your pardon, 5.5 million, what am I saying? 5.5 million each month. $66 million in budgetary support, it is called. I have a friend from Nevis, hates to hear that word, budgetary support, but it is fact. And my Straight Dog family, as we wind down, as I conclude, I must also say, my Straight Dog family, that 3 months hereafter, and the exceptions of Mark Brantley have been publicly noted. But yet the people of this federation whose future it directly impacts. We are all in the dark, and this must not continue. It cannot continue. The issue of Nevis's fair share is not just a government matter. It is a national one. It is time for the people to know. My Straight Talk family, publish the World Bank report. Let the people read it, reflect on it, and decide for themselves what is just, what is fair, and what is owed, if anything. This debate has gone on for far too long. Divisions are not begging, we know. They are asserting their rightful place, and repetitions and divisions are demanding accountability. My Straight Talk family, the future of our federation depends on trust. It depends on truth. And trust begins with truth. Let the people see the report is what I'll demand as we part company tonight, my Straight Talk family. And I do apologize for the difficulties we had tonight. And my Straight Talk family, unless the future of our federation depends on trust, and trust begins with truth. So let the people see the report, I repeat. And only then can we truly begin to answer the question, what is a fair share for Nevis? That's my soul tonight, my Straight Talk family, and I am not going to change it. I must thank Almighty God for guiding our conversation tonight, as always. I thank you, the many viewers, those of you who sent emails, those of you who called. Remember, you are the ones who make Straight Talk, and for that reason, I say a big, big thank you. Until we connect on Monday for another edition of Straight Talk, have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Whatever you do it in moderation. And remember that whatever your mind conceives, that you will achieve. But first of all, you must believe. So when you wake in the morning, thank God for the morning light. Thank Him for taking you through the night. And my Straight Talk family, keep moving on. Bye-bye. Until we connect on Monday.
When I wake in the morning, I thank God for the morning light. Give Him thanks and praises for taking me safely through the night. For the rest of food and loving care, and for my mother's breath of life that's got me here. So whatever my mind conceives that I will achieve, you better believe, because I do the things I should, be to my brethren kind and good, the best I could. So I'll keep moving on, I won't stop now. I'll keep moving on, till I reach the top somehow. Down on my knees, to the Lord I kneel and pray, with my heart and soul, beg Him to take me through each day. My guardian to keep, over every step I take, He will preside. So whatever my mind conceives that I will achieve, you better believe, because I do the things I should, be to my brethren kind and good, the best I could. So I'll keep moving my way.